Well, hello and welcome everyone to yet another one of my Arrow Season 6 videos. I guess it is time to take a break from the influx of Flash videos I've been posting over the past few days and talk some Arrow and the speculations out there on who Cayden James happens to be. I'll also be discussing, and as promised, who the rumored villain for the 6th season of Arrow happens to be. Now, if you are a bit hazy on the Cayden James name, the man happens to be the leader of Helix that they managed to rescue on the 5th season of the show, and whose identity is yet to be revealed to us. But as I mentioned in my video on what we know so far in the 6th season of Arrow, it has been made abundantly clear that Arrow Season 6 will feature the return of Helix. Now, within the very same statement made by the show's executive producer Wendy Miracle, in which she announced the return of Helix, it has been inadvertently made clear that Felicity is one of the survivors of the explosions only Anne knew. You can check out the details to that video by following the link that's available on the cards to this very video. But before I venture any further, I have a quick announcement to make. Pretty soon I'll be doing a giveaway on my DCTV videos. I'll be announcing its start over the next couple of videos. So I was originally thinking an Amazon gift card for the budgeted amount for this giveaway, but now I'm thinking of making it more personalized to the DC shows, like DVDs of earlier seasons, rings, necklaces, etc. So let me know in the comments if you have any specific suggestions, and if it is within the budget I've set for the entire thing, I'll go for it. I will also try to make it a recurring thing over the upcoming period. Hopefully I would do it at least once a month and alternate between DC, Marvel, and other sci-fi related videos on my channel. But before I circle back to the topic of Cayden James, I'd like to remind you that it is always much appreciated if you drop me a like, if you end up liking the content of this video, and if you subscribe if you want to see more of my Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow videos. I would also like to remind you to click the bell-shaped icon underneath this video to enable notifications and get updates on my videos as they come online. But circling back to the topic of this video, so there are two theories out there on who Cayden James might be. The first assumes he is possibly Felicity's father, the man we've come to know so far as the DC villain, the Calculator. We already know who the guy is, so I'm not going to dwell much on the character, but I'll rather only state a quick opinion on the subject. While the acting of Tom Amandes in the role of Noah Cutler has been pretty decent over the course of the 4 or 5 episodes he's appeared on, I think it is the obvious choice. And if there is anything you should know about me by now if you were a subscriber to my channel and frequent viewer to my videos, it is that I hate obvious choices. The first person and the first name to jump to mind when they attempted to break the man out was the Calculator, but instead I'd love for the show to surprise me with unexpected events, arcs, and reveals, which is exactly why I prefer the second theory over the first. But the second theory out there is all about Hartley Rathaway. Yes, the name sounds familiar because you've heard it multiple times before, and you've already seen the character as well multiple times before on The Flash. Now, the main premise for this theory, which was more or less published by one of my commenters on a previous video, is all about the tag that they provided Felicity with that Team Arrow would then use to trace and listen for Adrian Chase's heart. The commenter Iron Warmonger seemed to have seen it as some sort of Easter egg to who the so far hooded leader of Helix might be. You know, Pied Piper, sonic abilities, tech to trace and listen for hearts, that kind of thing. But if you ask me, I'm not totally convinced. Last time we met Harley, he was a changed man, a better man at that, due to the change Barry caused when he traveled back in time on the 2nd season of The Flash to enlist the help of Eobard Wells' increase his speed in order to defeat Zoom. So I would still hope for him to be someone else, someone who could be the major villain of the 6th season. As I mentioned before, Helix has managed so far to prove that they are a strong entity when they got to take on both Argus and Team Arrow at the very same time as they freed Cayden James. They just proved to be as smart as they are violent, cunning, and powerful, all of which are traits of major villains on any of the DC shows. You can only imagine what their leader should be like. Now, while anyone but the Calculator could be a pretty decent surprise there, the Calculator might be a pretty good bet when it comes to being a formidable villain. But the fact that his face did not get uncovered during the rescue mission means one of a few things. Number one, the showrunners don't know yet who they want under the mask, and in essence they didn't know what the reaction of Felicity should be once she gets to see his face. Number two, the showrunners knew exactly who's under the mask and is someone we know, but they didn't want Felicity's reaction to be a dead giveaway to the audience. Number three, the showrunners knew exactly who's under the mask, but they haven't cast anyone in the role yet, considering it's an arc to be explored further on a future season, which we now know happens to be Season 6. But finally, number 4, which is unveiling the villain trope. They don't want Felicity to know who he is, because just like Adrian Chase, he'll get to befriend one or more of the members of Team Arrow on Season 6. But let's move on to the second topic on my roster. There's this leaked casting call sheet on Reddit that states the show is seeking a male actor 30s to 40s who will portray the role of a hardened ex-con released from prison for crimes he did not commit. It also goes to state that he uses his freedom and $25 million in settlement money to establish his control over Star City's criminal underworld. Furthermore, it states that he's a martial arts and fighting expert honed by years of life on the streets and in prison. It then mentions something about being a 7 out of 13 series regular, which I assume has something to do with him maybe being on 7 out of the first 13 episodes of the upcoming season. Finally, the name the sheet gives for the character happens to be Ricardo Diaz. Now before I discuss who Ricardo Diaz is, better known on the pages of the comics as Richard Dragon, I'd say 1. Take this leaked casting call sheet with a grain of salt. Simply put, even if it were to be real, nothing is set in stone until it is actually announced. They might change their entire direction based on not finding the right actor for the role. You never really know. Number 2, while some people believe he might end up being the major villain, I don't really think the show would cast him to portray the role of Dragon from the get-go and make the reveal of the big bad villain from the get-go like they did with Dark. Part of the show's success in its first, second, and fifth seasons has something to do with the delay in revealing the villain trope. So what I'm thinking here is he'll be more like Sebastian Blood in Season 2 or Tobias Church in Season 5, just a B-type villain swinging in ranking between the major villain and all the other minor villains of the season. I'm still all for Cayden James being the major villain of Season 6. But who is Ricardo Diaz and what would his appearance possibly bring to the table on the 6th season of the show? Now there are 2 versions of Richard Dragon in the comics, but I'll be discussing the new 52 version for the most of it here, seeing as to how it is the one capable of being a villain and more in line with the presumably leaked casting call for the role. So Ricardo Diaz Jr. was the son of a drug kingpin who was killed by Diggle, dressed up as the Green Arrow. Torn between his fascination by the Green Arrow and his blaming him for the death of his father, Diaz traveled around the world and heard word of the League of Assassins, and after a lot of searching, he ended up trained by none other than the original Richard Dragon. That's pretty much the very same Richard Dragon in the comics who trained so many comic book characters. I'll circle back to that in a moment here though. Now Ricardo Diaz at some point down the road and after having been trained, killed his master and took over the name of Richard Dragon before returning back home. And that is around when he decided to seek revenge on the Green Arrow. And pretty much in concordance with the casting call description I discussed earlier, he appeared next leading a team of Green Arrow's enemies who were referred to as the Longbow Hunters. Now Dragon is no metahuman and has no superpowers, but he's the kind of villain who actually manages to deal significant blows to Oliver in the comics, but nonetheless ends up defeated in the end. But circling back to the first Richard Dragon, who's known to have trained a lot more than just Ricardo Diaz. The man is known to have trained the Huntress, Oracle, Renee Montoya, Lady Shiva, the Connor Hogg Green Arrow, Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, and The Question. Now speaking of The Question, aka Victor Sage, the show has been Easter egging the guy, including the reference to his home, Hub City, on the 5th season. I believe the appearance of Dragon would make it a perfect timing for The Question to make his first appearance on the show. Maybe it could happen in a seeking justice for his murdered sensei kind of way. Also, by the way, you can find a link to the Reddit post I mentioned earlier in the description to this video. Now with Arrow having yet announced who the major villain for their upcoming season is, I'm guessing the announcement is probably planned for the San Diego Comic-Con, which is a bit under a month away. It is kind of understandable though why they would announce the villains for Supergirl and The Flash right after the recent seasons finished their runs. Both Rain and DeVoe were Easter egged on the finales of the recent seasons of both shows. It was pretty clear that is what they're going for in the upcoming seasons. Besides that, Arrow and Legends ended their runs on a high note, while both Supergirl and The Flash were disappointing in different ways. The hype being built around the new villains was much needed for both shows anyway. But with that being said, you can check my recent video on the Cheetah Easter egg on the penultimate episode of The Flash Season 3 and the possibility we'd be seeing a Suicide Squad arc on the next seasons of either The Flash or Arrow that would include the comic book character. You can also check my recent 2 versions of Savitar Theory video and my theory videos on how the 2056 message from Barry wasn't really about Savitar, along with some speculations on what events they could possibly have something to do with. I'll be posting another video on that particular topic tomorrow and how it might have something to do with Godspeed. Now more importantly, do let me know in the comments what you thought of this video and what you think of the 2 theories and who Kaden James happened to be And if you have any theories of your own, let me know as well if you think Dragon would be more of a major type villain or a B type villain, and if you want to see the question on the 6th season of Arrow. Finally, make sure you drop me any suggestions for any specific videos you'd like to see on my channel on Arrow, Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and The Defenders. I'll do my best to work it out and upload them. Do make your suggestions as well on what the giveaway should be all about, and I'll take your suggestions into consideration. But until I see you next, thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.